Imagine this. You are married on Saturday, and by Monday morning, you are in a new kitchen. The floor is cold under your stockings. The stove is already hot. You are supposed to fry eggs and keep the coffee warm. You are supposed to smile when the men come in from chores. But when you stand up straight, your vision narrows. Your legs shake like they forgot how to hold you. You tell yourself it is normal. You tell yourself a good wife does not make noise. Then you hear it again, soft and firm. Stay silent. My name is Naomi. I grew up Old Order Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. I married at 19 in a church district where everyone knew everyone. I was raised with the same lessons most Amish girls learn early. Work hard, speak gently, and don't draw attention. I cooked for large families. I cleaned houses for older couples. I helped with babies before I ever held my own life choices. When I talk about my first week as a wife, I am not guessing. I lived it hour by hour in a house where my name changed overnight. And there is one part of that week that people outside the Amish rarely understand, but it explains a lot. In my community, marriage is not just two people. It is two families and a church. The Ordnung does not list every detail, but the rule is clear. A wife is expected to yield. We used the word gelassenheit, which means letting go of yourself. I heard that word so often, it felt like a law. There is also an expectation about silence. You don't talk about private body things. You don't talk about marriage problems. You don't talk about what happens in the bedroom. If you do, people say you are dirty-minded or ungrateful. That kind of silence is taught as modesty. It did not feel like modesty to me. The bishop and ministers teach that a home must have order. The husband leads, the wife supports. If a wife struggles, she is told to pray, work, and be patient. Women pass this down too, not because they are cruel, because that is how they survived. When something goes wrong, you don't make trouble. You go to family first. If it gets bigger, you go to the bishop. Medical care exists, but many families delay it. Not always from fear of doctors, often from fear of shame. I didn't know how dangerous that delay could be until my first week. My wedding was in late May. The air was warm, and the fields looked soft and green. I woke before dawn to get ready. My mother's hands were steady as she pinned my hair under my cap. She smelled like lye soap and lilacs from the yard. At church, I sat with the other women, my heart beating too fast. The sermon went long, like they often do. I remember the bishop saying, "Marriage is a school for the soul." People nodded like it was comfort. After the service, there was food, and so many dishes. I smiled until my jaw hurt. I tried to look calm, like the older married women. Inside, I felt like I was waiting for a test I had not studied for. That night, when we finally left, my husband Aaron drove the buggy quietly. He was 21. He was not a bad man. He was just young and certain that the way we did things was right. The road home was dark and smooth. I remember the sound of the harness rings and the horses breathing. By the next morning, I was in his family's small, dotty house on the farm. 2 rooms downstairs, 2 upstairs. The windows were open, and I could hear cows lowing in the barn. My mother-in-law, Mary, was already moving around like a clock. She said, "You can start by heating water. We wash up proper." I nodded. That is what I did. I filled a kettle and lifted it to the stove. My lower belly hurt when I bent. It was a deep pain, not sharp, like a weight pulling down. I told myself it was just newness. I told myself every bride feels strange. By midday on Monday, I was chopping potatoes at the table. The knife felt heavy. My hands were cold. When I stood to stir the pot, my knees softened. I grabbed the counter so fast, I left finger marks in the flour dust. Mary looked at me and said, "You're pale." I said, "I'm fine." She gave a small smile that was not warm. "First week is hard. Stay busy. It passes." That evening, I tried to act normal again. I set the table. I cleared it. I was careful not to sit too long. Sitting looked like laziness in that house. When Aaron came in from chores, he was hungry and tired. He kissed my forehead like a duty. Then he said, "Mom says you look sick." I heard myself answer, "I'm just tired." In my head, I said something else. "Please ask me again. Please notice." Tuesday morning, I woke up before light, sweating under the quilt. My nightgown felt damp. When I stood up, the room tilted. I held the bedpost and waited for the spinning to stop. My body felt like it was carrying a secret it could not hold. Downstairs, Mary was kneading dough. The sound of her hands hitting the bread was steady. She looked at me once and said, "You have to eat more." I tried. Each bite sat heavy. By Tuesday afternoon, I had spots in my vision when I walked. I was carrying a bucket of water from the pump when my arms started shaking. I set it down too hard, and water sloshed over the rim. I stared at the spill like it was proof I did not belong here. Mary came out and saw the water. She did not yell. She did something worse. She spoke calmly. "Naomi," she said, "don't be dramatic. Women have always done this work." I whispered, "I don't feel right." She looked past me toward the yard, like she was checking for ears. Then she said, "We don't talk about those things. You just rest when you can, and you stay silent about it. Understand?" I nodded because I had been trained to nod. Wednesday was the day I first thought I might not make it through this week. The morning was hot. The kitchen felt small. I was washing dishes in a pan, and the water turned gray with soap and grease. The smell made my stomach lift. I leaned over the sink and swallowed hard. My hands were wet and trembling. I told myself, "Count. Just count plates. That is how you get through." Aaron came in for dinner at noon. He looked at the food and said, "Good." Then he looked at me and said, "Why are you sitting?" I had sat down without noticing. My legs had stopped listening. I said, "I got dizzy." He frowned like he was sorting it in his mind. "Mom said it's normal. Don't worry her." Don't worry her. That was another rule. That night, after chores, he asked if I wanted him to get the bishop's wife to talk. He meant it as help, but my stomach tightened. Talking to the bishop's wife did not mean care. It meant advice that always ended the same way. Be patient, be obedient, be thankful. Thursday morning, I had a fever. I did not have a thermometer, but I could feel it. My skin felt hot, then cold. My mouth was dry. When I tried to stand at the stove, my legs went weak again. I said to Mary, "I think I need a doctor." She stopped what she was doing. She wiped her hands on her apron. She said, "We don't run to the English for every ache." I said, "It's not an ache." Her eyes narrowed. "Naomi, you're a wife now. This is private. You don't go telling people." I wanted to say, "It is my body." I wanted to say, "I am scared." Instead, I washed my face and went back to work. By Friday, I was moving like an old woman, slow, careful. The house was quiet except for the clock and the stove. I remember thinking how the quiet felt like pressure. Every sound I made seemed too loud. That afternoon, I was folding laundry upstairs when my ears started ringing. I sat on the bed and tried to breathe. My heart was pounding fast, like I had been running. I whispered out loud, "Something is wrong." No one answered. Of course no one did. Saturday came, 1 week after the wedding. A full week. People would say, "How's married life?" and they expected a soft smile. That morning, Mary said we were going to Aaron's grandparents for supper. I tried to dress, and my hands would not stop shaking. When Aaron hitched the horse, I stepped down off the porch, and my knees buckled. I grabbed the railing. My stomach clenched, and I tasted bile. Aaron looked at me, annoyed at first, then unsure. "What's going on with you?" I wanted to say the whole truth. I wanted to tell him about the pain and the weakness and the fear, but I could still hear Mary's voice. Stay silent. So I said the smallest truth I could manage. "I can't stand." He stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. Mary came to the door and said, "Naomi, don't start trouble on a Saturday." That was the moment I understood. If I listened to them, I might collapse in the quiet and call it obedience. We were still in the yard when I spoke. My voice was small, but it was clear. I said, "Aaron, I need help today. Not Sunday. Today." He opened his mouth, then closed it. His face went tight. He looked at his mother, then back at me. I gripped the porch rail because my hands were numb. My legs felt like rope that was fraying. I said, "I am not making this up. I am scared." Mary started to say something, but Aaron cut in. "We'll go to Daniel's. He has a phone." Daniel was a neighbor who worked with Englishmen sometimes. We drove the buggy there in silence. Each bump in the road sent pain through my belly. I held my apron in a fist and counted fence posts to stay awake. At Daniel's house, Aaron used the phone like it was a sin. He called a clinic in town. An English nurse asked questions, plain and fast. Aaron looked at me, lost. I answered myself. Weak, fever, dizzy, pain. She told us to come in right away. Sitting on that clinic chair, with bright lights overhead, I felt one thing stronger than fear. Relief. Because someone finally treated my words like they mattered. That day did not break my marriage. It broke the story I had been given about silence. I can see now why the women around me told me to stay silent. They had been told the same thing. Many of them had worked through pain without help.